What I like best about the Terry and Jesse show is that it revives my hope in men to be godly men.
It's a really good show because it's relatable to family life, daily life. It's encouraging. It's like cheerleading also for Catholics. But number one, the reason I like it because you guys aren't afraid to speak the truth.
You are both the most compassionate hosts I've ever heard. And as a Jewish convert, I am a much better informed Catholic. Thank you, Terry and Jesse.
I just think it's the best thing that we have here in LA. It's awesome. I'm hooked.
This is the Terry and Jesse show. Invite you to this holy hour.
This is the Terry and Jesse show. Absolutely. This is a holy hour of power. Jesse, I don't think we can hear you, brother. We are two Catholics with PhDs in common sense. This is common sense Catholicism. Our program is not right versus left. It's right versus wrong. This is actually Catholicism for the blue-collar man. We want to encourage you. We want to enlighten you. We want to offer you solutions. As a matter of fact, not only solutions, we want to give you inspiration to stand up for Jesus in the workplace and in the world that acts like God doesn't exist. Today, our topics are broad. I have a guest coming on, folks, that from Iraqi, the church in Iraq that we're trying to help Christians with immigration. They're going to be calling in. We're going to be talking about the issue of getting signatures for the abortion issue with minors at the schools. You know, it blows me away. My kid in school, when he was a kid, if he had a cut on his hand, he would have to get permission from the parents to put a Band-Aid on it, but they can go and get an abortion. It just seems ridiculous. So we want to talk about that. We also want to talk about issues. I was very, very impressed with a football player, and I'll tell you why I was impressed with him, is because he's actually standing up and saying, look, I'm an NFL player who refused to meet pro-abortion President Obama for March for Life. He's a Baltimore Ravens football player, and I just think that he took the word. In other words, he made a stand. He said, "Look, I'm not going to have a president who's funding 330,000 future citizens a year with abortion and saying this is a good thing. I just can't respect that, and I respect him." So that's another one. We're trying to get Jesse on our line. We've had some technical difficulties. Jesse, are you with us?
Yeah. Terry, can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Let's talk about what we're going to chat now. Go ahead, Jess. We hear you fine.
Yeah, there's a couple of topics. Number one, the power of silence. There's an article that talks about sometimes you're faced with such evil that the only thing you can do at that point is just invoke silence. Kind of like Jesus Christ, our Lord, did when he was being tried. So that's one thing. Do you ever believe that you can face such an evil that at that point you would just exercise the power of silence and maybe pray mentally in your mind? That's one topic. Here's another one. Do you realize that Harry Potter is being banned in UK public schools by evangelicals and Muslim parents?
Wow.
So they have and they're basically saying because it goes against their doctrine. The whole thing about the occult goes against Islamic and evangelical Christian doctrine. So I'm glad to see that there's some culture warriors out in Europe. Here's another topic. The olive tree has been spoken about in the Bible since the Old Testament. And there's a great article that says that the leaves from the olive tree as tea are powerful and cures all kinds of diseases. The article talks about 50 diseases that it cures.
Amazing.
And so what's interesting is that the olive tree leaf has been spoken of for about 3,500 years. And basically, when you read this article, it seems to be the cure-all remedy for basically anything that Americans are being afflicted with. Here's another good article. There's an NFL football player who refused to meet the president because this athlete is pro-life. And guess what? This athlete is going to headline the March for Life this year. He's going to be the headline speaker. He's a former NFL football player who just retired from the Baltimore Ravens. And his name is Burke. And he basically says he's a Catholic. He says he's a serious Catholic. And he says as a result of being a serious Catholic, he's been offended by some of the things that President Obama has said, especially when he said, God bless Planned Parenthood. his name is Matt Burke. He's going to be the keynote speaker at the March for Life this year. He's a former NFL football player. And I think that's good when people, high-profile Catholics, come out and speak out like that. Yeah, Terry?
Not only that, Jesse, that's going to affect his future in football and in other places because he was willing to make a stand. And I think that that's important is for Christianity today to say, you know what, I'm not going to be politically correct. I'm going to stand for the truth. Talking about the truth, here at the Catholic Resource Center, every second Saturday beginning February 13th at the Sacred Heart Chapel, we're going to have a monthly meeting. Jesse scheduled 3 of those times for the new year 2016. We have Father John Struso, who's going to be saying Mass and hearing confession, giving some spiritual talks. This is a time where, if you're in the Southern California area, to come. We start at 10:15 with Holy Mass, the second Saturday of each month. I'm going to be there. I'd love to meet you. We'll take a time for us to study our faith and increase our faith with the sacraments. And this is just a time for us to really build up our spiritual life. So if you want to come to that, just know that it's the second Saturday of each month. Also, because in Los Angeles, we almost have a full house for the Zachary King Spiritual Warfare Conference coming up January 15th and 16th at the Sacred Heart Chapel. I will say this, if you want to come, it's probably now or never, because if you don't call in the next week, I think we're going to have a full house, nearly 400 people coming to the Sacred Heart Chapel for the Spiritual Warfare Conference. Zachary King, yes, former Satanist, will be there. Jesse will be there. Father John Struso will be there. I'll be there. You call 877-526-2151 to join us. Also, I'm giving away the book, How to Be Somebody, but also I'm giving 2 copies of the book. It's a 180-page book, pocket book for you. And also The True Meaning of Christmas. We celebrate the octave of Christmas, next week on the 25th of December. But Bishop Sheen's going to give you insights on Christmas that'll be knock you off your horse. Call 877-526-2151, and I'll give you 2 copies. You can give one as a Christmas gift. Jess, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's 2 more good articles that kind of tie in with each other.
Yeah.
One is from Crisis Magazine, which is always a hallmark of orthodoxy.
Yes, that was it.
It's called The Vast Majority Myth. The Vast Majority Myth. Basically, the article says that it's a myth that the vast majority of Muslims are peaceful. I read the article. It's very powerful. I'm going to share some very powerful key points on the article, which I agree with, by the way. And another article that segues into that one is called "The Federal Government Can't Say the Whereabouts of Thousands of Immigrants Whose Visas Were Revoked Because of Their Ties to Terrorism."
Wow.
Is this microphone
scary.
on?
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, I don't know if you realize that the Obama administration can't be sure of the whereabouts of thousands of foreigners in the U.S. who had their visas revoked over terror concerns and other state reasons. There was a State Department official. He was being grilled by Representative Jason Chaffetz from Utah in a committee meeting. And basically, this chairman, the State Department chairman, said that the fact is, he says that the United States has revoked more than 122,000 visas since 2001. This was Thorin Bond, Assistant Secretary of the Bureau of Consular Affairs, and Thorin Bond said that 9,500 of those visas were revoked. Get this, because of the threat of terrorism. So Jason Chaffetz, the representative from Utah, asked Thorin Bond, so where are these 9,500 people whose visas have been revoked in the United States because of their ties to terrorism? Guess what? Thorin Bond said, we don't know.
Wow.
So don't fall off the chair. Okay? Don't fall off the chair.
Gosh.
Under the Obama administration, okay, and this was admitted yesterday in a committee hearing, okay, 9,500 immigrants whose immigration status has been revoked, whose visas have been revoked since 2001. Guess what? They're in the United States They have ties to terrorism because that's why their visas were revoked. And the government of Barack Obama does not know where they're at.
One point I want to make on that, Jesse, is that's one of the big things the government's supposed to do, and it's protect us from foreign powers, from people who want to do harm to the citizens. So I feel like, I'm just calling it for what it is. It's an atrocity. It shouldn't have happened, and I think that it's, I can only say that everybody's in danger. When the government doesn't do its job like that, protecting us, then we need to change. That's our government needs to change, and I think we can do that next year, folks. When we go to the voting booths, we can decide on who you want based on your Christian principles, and that's my suggestion, folks. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to continue to talk about these topics. But I want to also recommend that April 16th to the 23rd, Jesse and Terry and our wives are going to be going on a 7-day round-trip California coastal cruise on the Crown Princess from Los Angeles. We're going to visit cities like Santa Barbara, San Diego, San Francisco. But you know what I think is going to be the best thing? We're going to have a whole week together to pray. We have Mass, we have confession, we have the rosary, and then the power preaching, especially, I got to tell you, my brother Jesse Romero, if you haven't been on a retreat with him, come and join us. The way you can do that is by calling 805-526-6565 or go to Carmen at VeritasCruises.com. Give her a call and she'll send you some information, or go to our website, CatholicRC.org. Easy enough to call her, 805-526-6565. When we come back, we're going to take your calls, continue to fight the good fight. Don't turn that dial. We'll be right back. Jesse and I would like to thank you very much, and I also want to give you some good news about Catholic Radio.
Si consistant adversum negastia, non timebit meum. Dominus illumina Signore,
PSTorch.org. Thanks for your donations. Let's have it happen again and again and again. God love you.
You're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show. We're back. We're talking about how do you face evil? Jesus Christ, in the face of evil, he invokes silence at one point. There is power in silence. We're also talking about the Harry Potter. It's being banned in UK public schools by Protestant Christians and Muslim parents. It's good to see that Europe is showing some testosterone there.
Yep.
We've also got the olive tree as a powerful cure. Basically, it cures virtually every single disease, and the Bible's been talking about it for 3,500 years. We've got a incredible football player who's going to be heading the pro-life march this year.
March for Life.
We had 2 articles. The vast majority myth that Muslims are peaceful. We'll get into that article in the second half. And also, the federal government says they don't know the whereabouts of 9,500 immigrants whose visas were revoked because they have ties to terrorism. Okay?
Wow.
So they're here in the United States somewhere. You already know what one couple in San Bernardino, what type of havoc they can wreak. We have 9,500 people with terrorist ties in the U.S. that are walking around, and the federal government does not know where they're at. Their visas have been revoked. We've got, Terry, we got somebody calling in.
Carmel, you're welcome to come in. I mentioned earlier in the show that you're going to be calling. You're originally from Iraq. Is that a fair statement, my friend?
That's right. Thank you, Terry, and
thank
Jesse,
you
for taking my call.
Our pleasure. Tell us what you're doing to help the Christians in Iraq, and give us your background. We'd love to hear from you. Go ahead, my friend.
Terry, as probably you remember, I was born and raised in the city of Mosul in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
I came to the United States when I was 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Been here in the country for over 30 years.
Great.
And it's sad to hear what's going on with our people, the Christians, brothers and sisters back in Iraq,
mm-hmm.
in the city of Mosul and the Nineveh plain. As you know, this is the second Christmas that our people, brothers and sisters Christians, they are not living in their homes. They are refugees in the north of Iraq. They are refugees in Lebanon and Jordan and in Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad that we don't have many people, and especially our leaders, talking about this.
So what are you doing to help these people? Because I was excited to have our listeners know what you're doing. Because please tell us.
We are at the Chaldean Catholic Diocese in San Diego
mm-hmm.
with the call that we received from our own Bishop Sarhad, to support our brothers and sisters back home.
Yes.
The Knights of Columbus at our own parish started a program called Hope for Iraqi Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to promote this program and adopt a family back in Iraq and the neighboring countries.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we have a website and we have a phone number.
Yes.
And it's a 501c3,
mm-hmm.
and all the donations are tax deductible. So our website is hopeforiraqichristans.org.
And what's the phone number if they want to make a donation or to sponsor a family?
And the phone number is 619-863-1122.
And just so I know, because I think I'm going to step up to the plate myself. I think it's important. What are we talking about, the kind of money that would take to sponsor? Is it like combinations? Can people just tell us how it's all structured a little bit at least so that our listeners know?
We have different ways. You can donate. We're asking for people to donate, commit to $100 a month.
What does that do?
To support a family.
Great.
And this is actually not much. It's not enough for them to survive on the $100, but it's something to help them, to get by.
Excellent.
And we mainly, at our diocese, with the Knights of Columbus, we're helping the families in Lebanon and Jordan, because these families, when they left Iraq, they're asking for help. No organizations are helping them.
Yeah.
So they are depending on help from us, from people abroad, from the United States and from Europe.
Yeah, no, it's important. I'm going to say you got your first customer. I'll commit right on the air. I'll call you. I'll do $100 a month on my card.
Or you can
sign me up,
or you
buddy.
can do $1 a day, or you can do one-time donation.
Great. That's great.
And especially at this time, this is the season of giving. This Christmas. and asking them our brothers and sisters
Wonderful.
to remember our Christians back home.
Absolutely.
And put an extra gift next to your tree.
Wonderful. I want to thank you. Your phone number there for all of our listeners is 619-863-1122. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay, my friend, I want to thank you for the good work you're doing, and God willing, we'll see each other at the Biblical Studies Conference next month. God love you, my friend.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Wow. You know what, folks? Remember earlier in the week we talked about how to help these Christians in the Middle East? Here's a good example of how we can do it with our prayers and our financial support. I appreciate his call. Again, if you want to donate to help those Christians in the Middle East, 619-863-1122. Jesse, doesn't that inspire you to hear people who have been in the Middle East and they come out and they see what's going on and now they're willing to help, and they're not in that situation. They're away from it, but they want to help their brothers and sisters in Christ.
Absolutely, because they realize that we're part of the body of Christ. It doesn't matter if we're here in the U.S. or in the Middle East. We're all connected through Jesus. And by the way, Terry, there's also the Knights of Columbus on their website. They've also got a Middle East fund to Iraq. So for those of you that are Brother Knights, you can also donate through the Knights of Columbus website. They also have a fund to the Middle East, Iraqi Christians,
excellent,
and Syrian Christians. So I want to let you know that the Knights of Columbus are doing the same thing as well.
Awesome.
You're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show, and we are talking about, let me take a look at this little article. It says, when faced with evil, close open doors. Mm-hmm. This isn't easy. It says in the article, sometimes you got to roll with the punches, do so sometimes quietly, ride the waves.
Yeah.
In other words, it says, there are times to simply let go, stand firmly, let God be God, withstand an onslaught. We find this often in spiritual warfare. Silence. Otherwise, we are confused and disheartened by the trials of life. In other words, I think this article basically what it's saying, that there is a time to stop talking, and there's a time, when basically you've exhausted all words, and they talk about the power of silence. It's go into prayer, go into deep contemplative prayer. Mm-hmm. I will give you an example. Let's just say Jesse Romero was arrested by the Mutawa police because I was preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ in a Muslim country. Now, if I exhausted all my defense in a Muslim court and they're about to cut my head off, at that point I could see, why yell, why scream, why debate, why use apologetics?
Yep.
At that point, I would do what this article says. I would go into silence, before my accusers, and I would go into deep contemplative prayer and just try to lean on and trust in Jesus Christ that after a few moments of pain, all things will be well. So that's one of the articles that we have here, and I think it's got some very good advice, Terry. What do you think?
No, I think it's excellent, and the whole concept of living in the presence of God is the key to any Christian today. Jesse, before I go to this next comment, I want to preface this, folks. If you like listening to the Terry and Jesse Show, and we now have a free app for smartphones, whether it's Apple or Android, any smartphone, just go and type in the Terry Jesse Show at your app store, and it's free. Now you can listen to our show anywhere in the world. You got lots of free downloads and streaming of Scott Hahn's Answering Common Objections series. There's a lot of good material. So tell your friends, especially younger people, that we have a app to listen to the Terry and Jesse Show. Jesse, I just think this is important, and I know this is not politically correct, again, to say this, but the article from Crisis Magazine, The Vast Majority Myth, by William Kirkpatrick, I just think it's the facts, okay? I mean, think about 1.6 billion Muslims in the world, and some people are saying, a percentage of these people are extremists and they're violent. I don't think anybody in their right mind can say none of them are violent. I think that there are, because even in the Pew Research database, they asked a bunch of people from Pakistan and Egypt, and about 82% of the people favor stoning for adultery, amputation for theft, death for apostates. You leave the Muslim religion, and many of them are going to say, then you die. And I just find that unacceptable as just a human being. And so I'd like to ask you, Jesse, You've done a lot of research on this. Tell us what your thoughts are.
Well, Terry, I like what this article has to say because they quote the Pew poll, as you just showed.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of people here in the West, we're trained by the media to say Islam is a religion of peace. They're all peaceful. All Muslims are peaceful, and they reject violence. That's just not true. This article gets into it. In fact, this article says the proposition that the vast majority of Muslims are peaceful, a supposition which also has no empirical support. Again, Terry, you just quoted the Pew poll.
Yeah.
Okay, it's from Pakistan and Egypt.
Yeah.
Okay, 82% would vote for the application of Sharia law.
What?
82% right now in 2015. And Sharia law is what you just mentioned: stoning for adultery, amputation for theft, and death for apostates. What this article basically says is this, Terry. It's very well written. It basically says this, that though most people live in peace or trying to, just pay their bills and make a living, it doesn't take much for a peaceful person to turn violent. That's the whole purpose of this Crisis Magazine article, that people could turn violent in a jiffy, in the blink of an eye. The article gives an example, really good example. It says, people who are peaceful today will not necessarily be peaceful tomorrow. It's probably safe to say that the vast majority of Hutus were behaving peacefully before the Rwanda genocide of 1994. And then they stopped behaving peacefully, using clubs, machetes, and occasional guns, and the Hutu managed to kill 800,000 Tutsis in the space of 100 days.
Unbelievable.
So it's likely that the vast majority did not take part in the killings, but by all accounts, a sizable number did. So what it shows is that people sociologically could go from peaceful to violent in a second. And again, when you have Sharia law as kind of that wedge to incite people, it's very easy to do so. Don't change that dial. We'll be right back.
Jesse and I would like to thank you very much. And I also want to give you some good news about Catholic radio. As you probably have heard,
si consistant adversum negastia, non tinebit cor meum. Dominus illumina Signore,
CatholicRC.org. Thanks for your donations. Let's have it happen again and again and again. God love you. Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show.
You're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show.
We're too blessed to be stressed. Go ahead, Jesse.
Yep, we got a caller, Terry. We got Mark Padilla calling from the Knights of
Good
Columbus.
guy,
He'd
too.
like to weigh in on today's show.
Yeah, Mark, go right ahead,
Mark,
my
you're
friend.
on the program. Go ahead.
Hello, brothers. Thank you for having me on.
Our pleasure.
I am this year the Culture of Life chairperson for the state of California for the Knights of Columbus. So as you may or may not know, we have something like 72,000 Knights of Columbus in the state of California.
Wow, that's a lot.
So yeah, it is. So we have an army of men that are pro-life, that are putting it out there that we are going to do what it takes to create a culture of life here in the state of California. So, as you know, we're backing up the referendum against physician-assisted suicide.
Yes.
And Brother Knights throughout the state have been at parishes gaining signatures to get this referendum onto the ballot next November 8th, 2016. And we believe that on that day, it's a critical day to create a culture of life here in our state. And it's up to us. We can do that.
Awesome. Well, what are you doing what can we tell our listeners? How can they participate in this?
Okay, so you have seen, hopefully, the Knights and the parishes throughout the state, throughout Los Angeles, Orange County, San Bernardino, doing these petition drives, and we're going to continue to do that. However, we've done a special campaign where we've sent petitions to the Grand Knights, and there's something like 600 Grand Knights throughout the state of California. And each Grand Knight received 40 petitions, and what we want them to do is get these to every single knight, or at least 40 knights in their councils, which are the local parishes, and for a brother knight to fill one petition, just one petition. That's 10 signatures. We want them to go to their immediate family, friends, neighbors, and get one filled out. So we've sent out 25,000 of these.
Yeah.
If every night does one of these 25, we're talking about 250,000 signatures.
Awesome.
That's what we're after.
And what do you need by what date? So there's a little urgency here, is there not, Mark?
Well, yes. So we know that Governor Jerry Brown signed this End of Life Option Act on October 5th, 2015.
Right.
Now, that date is a bit devious. I mean, it seems to me that they couldn't have picked a worse date than that. So we've got 90 days as a people in the state of California to say, you know what, Governor Brown, you know what, California legislature, we're not for this. We're
Amen.
not for suicide. And so we've got 90 days to get these signatures, to get it on the ballot, and so that we, as the people of California, can vote for this or against physician-assisted suicide.
Right.
So that 90 days actually falls on January 4th, 2016. So we know that we have all the holidays in between there.
Sure.
January 4th is a Monday. So as far as the calendar is concerned, that's the worst possible day that we could have had to try to get to our goal.
So, Mark,
however,
Mark, how can our people, what website can they go to? Is there something, I mean, this is urgent. That's why I have you on the air. What can we do? How do we get involved with this fight?
Okay, so there's still a possibility to get a petition via the mail, although that's going to take some time and effort, especially with the holidays in the middle.
Sure.
The website is stopassistedsuicide.com. Stopassistedsuicide, altogether.com. And you can go to getting petitions through there. However, probably the more immediate way is go to your local parish, go to your local Knights of Columbus Council, and ask them for a petition. Ask them to sign this.
Good.
So we've got till December 28th to get these signed and mailed in to the Coalition Against Physician-Assisted Suicide in Sacramento. So if it gets there December 28th, they have a couple days to go through it, process it, and then get it back to the county seats in each county in the state of California, and that we're going to be at those county seats on January 4th submitting these signatures.
Great.
So this is of utmost importance. And I'm going to tell you, I stole something from Jesse.
Good.
And I've heard on your radio station.
Yes.
And that is, he says it one step further. He says, LA, as Los Angeles goes, so does California.
Amen.
As California goes, so does the nation.
Yep.
As the nation goes, so does the world.
Step it up.
So,
yep.
So I stole that from you, Jesse, just so that you know.
Yep. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, if we look at history, it was California that first legalized abortion, and something called the Therapeutic Abortion Act, signed in 1967, on June 14th, 1967, which is, 6 years before January 22nd, 1973, when Roe versus Wade went through it. And sad to say, it was Governor Ronald Reagan at the time.
That's true.
And so we led the way, unfortunately, tragically so, here in California. And we don't want, although there are other states that have legalized suicide in their states, it's California that's the biggest and largest.
And you know what I'm hoping for? Is that Governor Brown does what Ronald Reagan did, have a change of mind and protect the unborn. I sure hope he can do it. If Ronald Reagan could change his view, I'm hoping and praying that Governor Brown will do the same. How about you, Mark?
Certainly, Terry. Yeah, we certainly want that. But it's one of, if you do some research on this and you look at the political life of Ronald Reagan, that seems to be the darkest moment in his political career.
I agree. And as I said, I remember his conversion, and I think who actually had something on it was Cardinal McIntyre had an effect on Ronald Reagan to change his views on pro-life. And I think right now I pray that Governor Brown, with Jesuit training, would just come back to his Catholic faith. And I'm just being blunt with it because I want him to get to heaven. I don't want to be involved with killing, innocent people because you feel like, this is the right thing to do. It's never right to kill innocent life. And that's what's going on. You notice I said innocent life. And I just want to say, Mark, your website for everybody, stopassistedsuicide.com. And you're telling everybody to go to their local parish to get these petitions. And I appreciate your zeal for fighting this because we want to be right with you, arm in arm. Jess, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Mark, thanks a lot. I'm part of the Knights of Columbus as well, and you guys are doing some great work, not only in California but around the world. And I just want to let the audience know about the Knights of Columbus. Also, they're fun to help Christians in Iraq and in Syria. If you go to the Knights of Columbus website, it's kofc.org/Iraq.
Great.
KOF
Absolutely.
/Iraq, and you can send checks or money orders to the Christian Refugee Relief Fund through the Knights of Columbus for Iraqi and Syrian Catholics.
Mark, I want to thank you again for taking the time and your zeal for trying to stop this assisted suicide. We're with you, brother, and if we can be of other assistance in the future, call on us. Okay, Mark?
Yeah, and if anybody needs a petition or has any questions, I'm going to do that thing they say not to do. I can give out my cell phone number.
Give it, give it.
If that's okay with you all.
Absolutely, I do it all the time. Go ahead.
Okay, so my number is 323 area code.
Yep.
742. Yep. 2990. So that's 323-742-2990. So we need everybody to step up to bat. We can't be complacent and think somebody else is going to do it.
Well
this
said.
Is our time to create a culture of life.
Mark, thank you. When good men do nothing, that's Amen. When evil abounds, and you're a good man to show that. God love you. Keep up the good work. Yeah. Folks, you just tuned in. You're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show, and we're giving away some Christmas gifts. We got 2 books, How to Be Somebody, Cultivating an Interior Garden. I'll just give you one amazing quote. This is a quote because we got the spiritual conference coming up, the Spiritual Warfare Conference. This book, here's one right now that'll give you the most powerful weapon to conquer the devil is humility. For as he does not know at all how to employ it, neither does he know how to defend himself from it. That was from St. Vincent de Paul. You want gems like that? Pick up the phone, call 877-526-2151, and I'll give you 2 copies. 877-526-2151.
Terry, Mark was just talking about when good men do nothing, and you're saying that evil abounds, quoting the statesman Emil Burke.
Yep, that's it.
Well, that's why we need good Catholic men to step up and be counted, just like this Matt Burke, NFL football player for the Baltimore Ravens. This man refused to meet President Barack Obama because of the statements that he made about Planned Parenthood. He said in 2013, he said, "God bless Planned Parenthood." And as a result of that, the Baltimore Ravens were asked to visit the White House. And Matt Burke, he was an offensive lineman for the Baltimore Ravens. He says, "I'm pro-life. I'm Catholic. Although I respect the office of the president."
Absolutely.
He says, I can't go and meet with a man who makes statements such as "God bless Planned Parenthood." And so Matt Burke says, "I'm active in the pro-life movement, and I just felt that I couldn't deal with that. I couldn't endorse that in any way, so I didn't want to go to the White House." See, that's what it means to put your faith on the line.
Absolutely.
Matt Burke, this NFL, he also said, "I'm very confused by the president's statement. For God to bless a place where they're ending 3,300 lives a year, I chose
not a year,
I just
a day.
chose not to attend."
Yeah, this is big time, a day. This is ridiculous. We're talking.
No, Terry, this is a year. There's 330,000 a year is 4,000 a day.
Yeah, a day. So
4,000 a day.
Right, a day, not a year.
So Matt Burke is he's gonna be the top speaker this year for the March of Life. So he says this last thing he says, "I don't think I'm a superstar by any means, but I'm glad for the platform that football allows me. I'm glad to use it to support causes that I passionately believe in, and this is one of them. For me, it comes down to what's right and what's wrong, what's God's will and what's not." Thank you, Matt Burke. God bless you.
Yeah, when we say this program's not about right versus left, it's about right versus wrong. Matt, you're right with us. Folks, if you'd like to pick up the Bishop Sheen CDs on the true meaning of Christmas, we still got 2 copies for you. Just pay the shipping and the handling. It's a great CD set. Call 877-526-2151. That's 877-526-2151. Or go to our website, catholicrc.org. We'll be right back. This is Terry again. I want to thank you for listening to our show. I wanted to just mention that I had a call from a 15-year-old.
Si consistant adversum gratia, non timavit
let's have it happen again and again and again. God love you.
We're back. You're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show. This is the Lord's Gym. We're your spiritual fitness trainers. And your spiritual fitness trainers want to take you out to the sea. The first Terry and Jesse Show at Sea Conference Cruise, April 16th to the 23rd, from a Saturday to a Saturday. It's a 7-day round trip departing from LA to all the great California mission ports. We're going to have daily mass, daily adoration, daily rosary, daily confessions. We'll have the opportunity to hang out together, dine together, get to know each other, evening socials, Q&A sessions, power preaching every evening. You're going to be with like-minded Catholics from around the country. If you want information, the phone number and the email information, just go to my website, jesseromero.com, jesseromero.com. On the front page, there's a link there. It says the Terry and Jesse Show at Sea. All the information's there, phone number and email, so you can sign up. We want to get to know you. We want to meet you. We want to hang out with you for 7 days. This article written by Crisis Magazine is very, very insightful. It's called The Vast Majority Myth. Here's what the author writes. He says, the proposition that the vast majority of Muslims are peaceful is a supposition which also has no empirical support. It says here, given the right circumstances, the article says, the majority of almost any population will willfully put itself on a war footing and turn their homeland into a home turf. All you have to take a look at is, for example, the Black Lives Matter or the Occupy Wall Street. You can see the way something could turn from peaceful to violent in a second. The article says, the question is there something about Islamic cultures that make them more susceptible to warlike attitudes more of the time? And he answers the question. He says, before attempting an answer, let's briefly consider another historical example, the Spartans. Were the vast majority of Spartans peaceful? In the sense that the great majority, including women and children and the elderly, were not at war all the time? Yes. Still, we would be mistaken to call them a peaceful people. Sparta was a warrior culture, and it cultivated a warrior mentality in its citizens. The Spartans were a unique case, but insofar as Islam has a tendency, it tends in the direction of Sparta rather than, say, in the direction of Sweden. Okay?
Sure.
In other words, the article says Islam is a culture which has been more or less at war with the rest of the world since its inception. And this is why Sharia law is the penalty for death is the penalty for apostasy. If you leave Islam, it's death. And why is it? Because Islam understands itself to be an army. That's why they prescribe to kill an apostate, because Islam understands itself to be an army.
Well, just point it this way. Since Muslims are still expected to model their behavior after their founder, Muhammad, it's not surprising that Muslim cultures will be more prone to violence than, say, cultures like, take even Buddhism or Christianity. See, our culture is completely sold on the importance of having role models to emulate. But we haven't yet grasped the consequences that follow when 1.6 billion people take Muhammad as their primary role model. What? Yes, that's what I see it. Indeed, one of the chief appeals of ISIS and their company is their promise to return Islam to their great elevation. And that's a concern I have. How about you?
Absolutely. I think that, as the article says here, it says, it may well be that a great many Muslims today just want to be left alone to go about their business. But one of the built-in features of Islamists that if you're a Muslim, it won't leave you alone. It wants to force you to be good. However, the only way to know if you're good is if you conform to Sharia law. Thus, wherever Islam is practiced in its purest form, you have the virtue police that patrol the streets, and everyone understands that if they convert to another religion, they can be executed for apostasy. Why? Because Islam sees itself as an army. And if you desert Islam, that's deserting an army in wartime. That's death. That's desertion. The vast majority of people go with the flow. Let's be honest.
Yep.
The flow of Islam today has returned to its historical channel. It flows in the direction of militancy. And many of the secular governments in the Muslim world have been overthrown or are in danger of falling to militant theocrats. The caliphate has been reestablished in the form of the Islamic State, and the combined might of Russia and the Western powers has been unable to defeat it. Guess what? This gives these men, these Muslim terrorists, the air of superiority that we're doing God's will.
Yeah, and Jesse, I think everybody can get this article from our feed either on our website, catholicrc.org, or on our social network. Is that a fair statement? We've already sent that to our man, correct, Jess? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you want to get this, you can go at Terry Jesse Show on our at Terry Jesse Show on our Twitter account.
And I also want to mention the iPhone app, because this is important. You're listening to this and you're going, wow, nobody else is telling us this way, about the Islamic issues, about Islam. Wow, I want to hear. I want my son to hear this. I want my brother to hear this. Well, folks, if you have an iPhone app that's free that you can go with your phone, just go onto the store and ask for the Terry Jesse Show, and you can hear this anytime you want. You can go back and listen to all our shows. And one more thing I want to mention that's important for those in Southern California. Starting February 13th, we're going to start the second Saturday of each month having a Catholic radio meeting here at the Sacred Heart Chapel in downtown Covina. Father John Strussel will be saying Mass. You'll hear confessions. We'll have Catholic radio updates. We'll have a lot of good Catholic literature for you. This is going to be a monthly checkup. You know how you check in for your doctor? Well, we're going to be your spiritual fitness trainers. And those in Southern California who want to join us, come to the 381 West Center Street in Covina. That's the Sacred Heart Chapel. You can even call 877-526-2151 to tell us you want to come. Also, just a quick note, if you go to our website, catholicrc.org, we've got a huge conference coming up on spiritual warfare with Zachary King, the 15th and 16th of January. We're almost sold out, but if you still want to come, if you can't come and you want to get the recordings, call 877-526-2151, and whether you can join us or not, we're going to record everything. And Jesse, just a quick note for our folks, you're going to be coming from a biblical perspective of how these evil spirits come into people's lives. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, bring your Bible. I'm going to give 3 60-minute presentations on the New Testament and exorcism. So you're going to get I'm going to have an outline provided for the audience. So you're all going to get home. Going to go home with an outline of the presentations. You're going to see exactly, not what Jesse Romero or Terry Barber or a Catholic priest or the Pope. You're going to see what God says, God's Word says about exorcism, possession, and deliverance from the New Testament. I'm going to deploy about 40 verses, and we're going to go through them verse by verse. We're going to look at point of entry of the demon, point of expulsion of the demon. I think it's going to be very insightful. I don't think anybody's done something like that I've seen at a spiritual warfare conference, so I'm excited to break new ground.
Absolutely, and Father John Strussel's also been in healing ministries. He's going to help us in that respect, and I've actually am getting many different priests to come to hear confessions. It's going to be a great event, folks. I want to also just thank those who have been so generous to the Terry and Jesse Show. We're trying, at this point, we think we're going to be able to get a remodel on our studio at the end of the year. We've got some benefactors hoping that they're going to come through. And if you want to join us with a little extra money at the end of the year, tax deductible, to help us in our studio upgrade, call 877-526-2151. As a matter of fact, I'll even give you my cell number if you want to call and make a donation to us. My cell number is 661-972-7872. I'll repeat it. I love to chat with people after every radio show. 661-972-7872. Jesse, wrap up our preparation for today.
Yeah, Larry, let me wrap up this last topic because it's very insightful. It is. Here's what Kirkpatrick says in the last paragraph. Here's what he says.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Here's a classic case of how fast somebody went from a peaceful Muslim to a violent Muslim. He said this: the other day, the Daily Mail, which is a UK paper, carried a photo of a smiling young man in Muslim garb holding a large sign that read, quote, "I am Muslim. Do you trust me enough for a hug?" Question mark. If that were the end of the story, we could all reassure ourselves that he had thoroughly grasped the cherished Western concept, arms are for hugging. But shortly afterward, Craig Wallace, also known as Mohammed Islam, sent an online death threat to a Tory military police who had voted to authorize military action in Syria. So Wallace, Mohammed Islam, went from 1 second to a peaceful Muslim asking people to give him a hug, carrying a sign, to the next second sending a death threat to a Tory military police who voted to authorize military action in Syria. Let me tell you, because of Sharia law, they switch from 1 second to another into dynamite, into a firecracker. Terry.
I want to pray for all my Muslim people. I want to pray that they will come to know Jesus Christ, because that's what our show is all about. Introducing people to the person of Christ. Without Christ, life it's not worth living. And that's why we're so passionate about our show every single day. And I want to thank all of you that have given support to the Terry and Jesse Show. May God richly bless you and your family.